My name is Vicky, I'm 41 years old, and I live in San Francisco. I have a job I love, 2 incredible daughters, and a life that, for the most part, feels good, peaceful, steady. I work as a designer, something I've been passionate about for as long as I can remember. I spend my days working on projects that actually excite me, and my evenings, those are for my girls, Emma and Sophie, my entire world. Emma just turned 14, and she's at that stage where she pretends she's too cool for me. But I still catch her smiling at my bad jokes when she thinks I'm not looking. Sophie is 10, a ball of energy, always talking, always asking questions, always climbing onto my lap, even though she's getting way too big for it. The 3 of us, we're a team. We cook together. We take weekend trips. We have movie nights where we sit in a pile of blankets on the couch and argue over what to watch until we finally settle on something we've seen a dozen times already. It's a good life. A better life than the one I had before. Because before, I was married. And that's what I want to talk about. People ask me sometimes why I'm divorced. If they don't ask directly, they imply it. Like maybe I couldn't hold my marriage together. Or maybe my standards were too high. Or maybe I'm just another bitter woman who didn't try hard enough. Let me tell you something. I tried. I tried harder than I should have. Harder than anyone should have to. And in the end, none of it mattered. Because while I was building a life for my family, while I was raising our daughters, working, holding everything together, my husband was busy betraying me in the worst way possible. And the person he betrayed me with? My own sister. That's right. This isn't some story about a man who made a mistake, who got caught up in something stupid and regretted it. No, this was planned. This was deliberate. This was selfishness disguised as love. And if I hadn't caught on when I did, I would have been just another woman living a lie. It started with the business trip. At least that's what he called it. He sat me down one evening telling me he had to go to Europe for work. He made it sound so professional, so serious, like this was something important, something he didn't even really want to do but had no choice. It's for a big client, he told me. I don't like leaving you and the girls, but it's just for a week. I nodded, trying not to let him see the disappointment on my face. I never liked when he traveled. I handled everything when he was gone, the house, the kids, my own job. When do you leave? I asked. Next Friday. That was it. I didn't question it, not yet. But then something happened. A few days later, I was on the phone with my sister. She was acting weird. Now let me say this. We were close. Or at least, I thought we were. We had grown up together. We had shared everything. She was my only sibling, my confidant, the person I always turned to. But that night, she was off. I mentioned that my husband was leaving for a trip, and there was this long pause on her end. Then she said, "Oh, that's interesting." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Nothing, just, I might be traveling soon too." That alone wasn't strange, but the way she said it, like she hadn't meant to say it out loud, that was strange. I asked her where she was going. She hesitated. "Oh, just a little vacation, nothing big." "Where?" Another pause. Then, "Europe." My stomach twisted. "Really? That's funny. That's exactly where my husband is going." She laughed, but it was forced. "Yeah, weird coincidence, huh?" I didn't say anything. Because in that moment, something clicked. It wasn't just weird. It wasn't just a coincidence. I started thinking back to the way my husband and my sister always got along a little too well, to the inside jokes they had, the way they would text each other about things I didn't know about, to the subtle glances, the way she always defended him when we argued, even when she had no reason to. It hit me all at once. They were going together. Not a business trip, not a vacation, a getaway, behind my back. I wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there, but I stopped myself. If I accused her, she'd lie. She'd find a way to cover it up. So instead, I kept my voice calm. "Yeah," I said. "What a weird coincidence." And then, I started planning, because if they thought they could do this behind my back, if they thought they could lie to my face and get away with it, they had no idea who they were dealing with. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I could hear my husband breathing beside me, sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that I had just figured him out. I wanted to wake him up and scream. I wanted to ask him how long he had been doing this, how many lies he had told, how many times I had been the fool sitting at home while he played whatever game this was. but I didn't. Because if I exploded now, he'd just lie his way out of it. I needed proof. So the next morning, I started paying attention to everything. When he got home from work that evening, I casually asked, "Remind me again where you're staying in Europe?" He barely glanced up from his phone. "Oh, it's all booked by the company, some hotel near the conference center." "Which city?" Paris for the first part, then maybe Brussels. I don't have all the details yet." Lie. My husband worked for a mid-sized tech company in San Francisco. They didn't send people to Paris and Brussels for conferences. Their business was based in the US, and the one time he had traveled for work before, it was to a conference in Chicago. I kept my face neutral, nodding as if I believed him. That night, while he was in the shower, I did something I had never done in our entire marriage. I checked his email. I knew his password. He had given it to me years ago when I needed to book a flight for him. He probably assumed I never paid attention to it after that. I scrolled through his inbox, feeling my hands shake. And there it was. A flight confirmation, 2 tickets, one in his name, one in my sister's, both departing on the same flight, both returning on the same day. They weren't even trying to cover it up. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling my entire body go cold. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't paranoid, this was real. They were really doing this. And yet the strangest thing happened. I didn't cry, I didn't even feel sad. I just felt clear, like something inside me had snapped into focus. I had spent years trusting these 2 people. I had spent years thinking my husband was a good man, that my sister was my closest friend, that my family was whole. And now, I was looking at cold, undeniable proof that they had been betraying me, together. I took a screenshot, sent it to my own email, and then I closed the laptop and made a plan. Because I wasn't just going to catch them. I was going to burn every bridge they thought they could still walk across. For the next few days, I played my role perfectly. I didn't give them any reason to suspect I knew. I kissed my husband goodbye in the mornings. I texted my sister like nothing was wrong. I let them believe they were smarter than me, that their little plan was still intact. But while they were lying to my face, I was setting the stage. I collected everything, screenshots of the flight confirmation, copies of my husband's text messages that I pulled from our shared cloud backup, even an email from my sister to a friend, mentioning that she was so excited for a much-needed getaway, which would have been harmless if she hadn't lied to me about it. And then I set my trap. The night before their flight, I cooked dinner like usual, kept things calm, normal. My husband, thinking he was getting away with this, was actually in a good mood for once. He didn't even notice how much I was watching him. After we put the kids to bed, he kissed me and said, "I'll be gone when you wake up, but I'll text you when I land, okay?" I smiled, nodded. "Of course, babe. Safe flight." And just like that, he left. What he didn't know, I wasn't planning to sleep. I waited until I was sure he was at the airport. Then I started making calls, first to my parents. I laid it all out, every single detail. I sent them the proof, let them see it with their own eyes. My mother started crying. My father, who had always seen my husband as a decent man, was furious. Then I sent the same proof to my extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. And finally, I emailed it to my husband's boss. Why? Because the only reason my husband even had his job was because of me. When I started my design business years ago, I had built strong connections in the industry. And when my husband was struggling to find work, I was the one who helped him secure a comfortable, well-paying job. One that, truthfully, he wouldn't have gotten without my recommendation. A job that he was about to lose. By morning, my inbox was filled with messages from family and friends. My mother was in shock. My sister, completely silent. And my husband, still blissfully unaware, thousands of miles away, thinking his life was exactly the way he left it. Then his plane landed. And that's when everything changed. The moment he turned on his phone, he must have been overwhelmed with notifications. I had sent the truth to the people who mattered most. His employer, his family, our mutual friends. There was no more hiding. At first he tried to reach me. He called just after landing. I didn't answer. Then he texted, "Hey, just landed. You okay?" I didn't respond. A few minutes later, another message. "Call me." Still, I said nothing, because while he was miles away, I was putting the final pieces in place. First, I contacted his job. By the time he checked his messages, his boss had already seen the evidence. The details of his business trip were exposed, proving that he had used company resources to request time off for something completely unrelated to work. And because I had industry connections, because my reputation was solid and trusted, his boss took it very seriously. Within 2 hours of landing in Europe, my husband's employment had been terminated. Then I contacted our bank. I had already secured our joint savings, ensuring that nothing could be misused or withdrawn before I had the chance to protect my children's future. And then I waited, because I knew exactly what was coming. And I didn't have to wait long. By noon, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. By the afternoon, he was reaching out to family, hoping someone would get me to talk to him. By the evening, he had finally realized the full extent of what had happened. And that's when the messages changed. "Why would you do this? We need to talk. This isn't fair." But the truth was, everything was fair. I had simply revealed the reality of his choices. And my sister, she wasn't in a better position. She had no job, no savings, and now she found herself without the support she had always relied on. After seeing the truth, our parents distanced themselves from the situation. She tried calling, explaining, trying to mend what had been broken, but my mother couldn't find the words to respond. My father, normally calm and rational, was deeply disappointed. She had made a choice, and now she was left to deal with the consequences. As for me, I was finally free. No more dishonesty, no more uncertainty, no more investing my time and energy into people who didn't value my trust. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. And I never once looked back. In the days that followed, everything crumbled around them. I didn't need to lift a finger. They destroyed themselves. My husband was still stuck in Europe, trying to salvage a vacation that had turned into the worst week of his life. His bank cards? Blocked. His job? Gone. His family? Refusing to take his calls. My sister? She wasn't doing much better. She came back first. I know because she showed up at my door. I heard the knock while I was making breakfast for my daughters. For a brief moment, I considered ignoring it, but something in me wanted to see her face. When I opened the door, she stood there, looking like a mess. Red eyes, wrinkled clothes, hair pulled back like she hadn't even brushed it. "Vicky," she started, her voice small, like she had rehearsed how to sound pathetic. I didn't say anything. She sighed. "Can we talk?" "Talk?" I repeated. "Talk about what exactly? About how you betrayed me? About how you spent months sneaking around with my husband?" She flinched. "It wasn't like that," she whispered. That made me laugh. Actually laugh. "Oh, really? So tell me, what was it like?" I crossed my arms. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty clear." She swallowed hard. "I made a mistake," she said quickly, like she thought those words would fix something. "I was stupid, okay? I wasn't thinking." "You weren't thinking when you bought plane tickets together? You weren't thinking when you planned a whole vacation behind my back? You weren't thinking when you snuck around and lied to my face?" Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't feel a shred of sympathy. "Vicky, I lost everything." She looked desperate now, her voice breaking. "Mom and Dad won't talk to me. My friends don't want anything to do with me. I don't have anyone left." I tilted my head. "Sounds lonely." She let out a sob. "Please," she begged. "Please, I know I don't deserve it, but can you forgive me?" I took a slow breath. And then finally I spoke. "I don't hate you." She blinked, like she hadn't expected that. "I don't hate you," I repeated, "but I will never, ever trust you again." Her face crumpled, and she started crying harder, but I didn't wait to hear another word. I closed the door, and just like that, she was out of my life. But my husband? He wasn't done trying to fix what couldn't be fixed. He got back 2 days later, and unlike my sister, he didn't show up at my door. Instead, he texted me, over and over again. "We need to talk." "I can explain." "You're overreacting." "You're destroying our family." That last one made me laugh. I was destroying the family? He had been cheating on me with my own sister, and I was the one to blame? The entitlement was unbelievable. Then when he realized I wasn't answering, he tried a different angle. "Think about the kids." Ah, the classic. Like I hadn't already been thinking about them this entire time. Like I hadn't spent years keeping this family together while he had been out doing whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. I didn't answer, so what did he do? He went to his former boss, the man who had only given him a job because of me, the same man who had already fired him the second the truth came out. Apparently, he begged for another chance. I made a mistake, he had told him. I was dealing with personal issues. I just need a second chance. His boss didn't even blink. You didn't just make a mistake, Mark. You got caught, and you're not worth the risk. That was it. No sympathy, no job, no options left. He had been handed a great career on a silver platter, and he had thrown it all away because he thought he was untouchable. Now he had nothing. The house, mine. The kids, mine. The money, mine. And him? Well, from what I heard, he was living in a tiny apartment, working some low-paying job he hated, struggling to keep up with child support payments that were way too high for someone with his new income. I didn't feel bad, because he had built this reality for himself. He had thought he was smart, that he could sneak around and lie and manipulate, that he could take everything I had built and not face consequences. And now, he was exactly where he deserved to be. As for me, I was finally free. No more walking on eggshells, no more wondering if he was lying, no more waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just me, my daughters, and the future we deserved. And let me tell you something, we were better off than ever. Life now, it's better than I ever imagined. The weight I carried for years, the constant stress of holding together a broken marriage, of second-guessing myself, of feeling like I had to be the one to fix everything. It's gone, and in its place, peace, stability, a life that finally feels like my own. My daughters are thriving. Emma, my oldest, is doing amazing in school. She's so smart, so independent, and I can already see her becoming a strong, confident young woman. She doesn't talk about her father much, and honestly, I don't push her to. If she asks questions, I answer them honestly, but I let her form her own opinions. And so far, she's made it clear that she has no interest in chasing after a man who prioritized his selfish desires over his family. Sophie, my youngest, is still as bubbly as ever. She tells me everything, what happened at school, what her friends said, what new game she's into. And the other night, while we were watching a movie, she leaned against me and said, "Mom, I like it better now." "Like what better?" I asked. "Everything," she shrugged. "You don't look sad anymore." That one hit me, because for years I thought I had hidden it well. I thought I had kept my exhaustion, my unhappiness, my resentment buried deep, protecting my kids from seeing it. But they knew. Kids always know. And the fact that Sophie, at just 10 years old, could already see how much lighter, happier, freer I was now, that told me everything I needed to know. I made the right choice. And let me tell you, I've never looked back. My career has flourished in ways I never thought possible. Before, I was always splitting my focus, always dealing with my husband's messes, always emotionally drained from carrying the weight of a failing marriage. But now my time is my own. My creativity, my energy, my passion, I pour it all into my work, into my designs, into building something for myself. And the best part? I no longer have to apologize for it. I don't have to feel guilty for working late, for taking time for myself, for enjoying my success. I don't have to listen to a man make snide comments about how I should be grateful that he let me have a career, or how my job was just a hobby compared to his real work. I support my kids on my own. I make my own money, I make my own decisions, and I go to sleep at night knowing that I never have to depend on anyone else to keep my life together. And for the women out there, especially the young wives, the ones who are just starting their journey, the ones who are still holding on to hope that things will change, listen to me, pay attention, because men like my ex-husband, they show you who they are. Maybe not all at once, maybe not in ways that seem obvious at first, but the signs, they're always there. The way he shifts blame onto you, making you feel guilty for things that aren't your fault. The way he hides small things, little lies that don't seem like a big deal, until one day, they are. The way he makes you doubt yourself, dismissing your concerns, brushing you off, making you feel like you're crazy for questioning things. The way he expects you to carry the weight of the relationship alone, while he takes and takes and takes, giving nothing in return. Don't ignore it. And don't convince yourself that love means endurance. Love isn't suffering in silence. Love isn't sacrificing your happiness to keep the peace. Love isn't staying with someone who makes you feel small. If you ever find yourself shrinking, If you ever catch yourself making excuses for his behavior, if you ever feel that sinking feeling in your gut, that something isn't right, listen to it. Because I wish I had listened sooner. I wish I had left years before I actually did. But you know what? I made it out. And now I get to live a life that's mine. I get to wake up every day without regret. And most importantly, I get to show my daughters that they never have to accept less than they deserve.